every once in a while, a story comes along that completely flips the script. You think it's going to be about celebration, but instead it turns into controversy. You think the headlines are locked in, then one press conference changes the entire conversation overnight. That's exactly what happened to the Indiana Fever. Just when this franchise should have been soaking in one of the biggest milestones in team history, the spotlight shifted to drama, backlash, and a fan base split right down the middle. But here's the crazy part. What actually happened and what millions of people believe happened aren't necessarily the same thing. And when perception starts beating reality, that's when things get real messy. Welcome back to WNBA Vibe, where we break down the biggest story shaking the league without the noise or the spin. So buckle up, because this one goes way deeper than basketball. Let's start with what should have been the biggest win of the week. The WNBA officially announced its 2026 All-Star starters, and the Indiana Fever absolutely crushed it. Aliyah Boston earned her spot. Kelsey Mitchell earned hers. And Caitlin Clark. She locked in another All-Star start, making it 3 straight appearances while continuing to prove she's one of the biggest attractions in all of sports. 3 Fever players starting in the same All-Star game. That's not just impressive, that's franchise history. No other team in the league can say they are sending multiple starters this season. When the lights come on inside Chicago's United Center, the Fever won't just be represented, they'll be front and center with half the basketball world watching every possession. Think about how massive that is. For years Indiana was trying to rebuild. Now they are becoming the face of the league. 3 starters don't happen by accident. It means your organization is doing something right. It means fans voted. Players earned respect. Coaches across the league recognize the talent. This should have been the kind of moment that dominates every sports show, every basketball podcast, every highlight reel, and every social media timeline. The conversation should have been simple. The Fever have officially arrived as a powerhouse. Instead, that celebration barely had time to breathe before another storyline swallowed it whole. Within hours, the excitement was competing against one of the most heated debates the WNBA has seen this season. Suddenly, the All-Star selections weren't leading the conversation anymore. Fans weren't just discussing basketball. They were arguing about comments made during a media session, firing off reactions online, and turning every Fever post into another battlefield. That's how quickly momentum. Without being prompted by a reporter, she spoke about the online abuse directed toward Alyssa Thomas following the June 24th incident. Her message focused on behavior that crossed every line imaginable: racist comments, homophobic attacks, threats, and harassment aimed not only at a player but also at her family. White made it crystal clear that behavior like that had no place around the game. She even said she didn't believe those people represented real WNBA supporters or genuine to spread division online. Her message was blunt, direct, and emotional. If you're participating in that kind of harassment, don't call yourself a fan. Now here's where things get interesting. What Stephanie White literally said and what thousands of people believe she meant quickly became 2 completely different conversations. They were being lumped into a category they didn't belong in. Whether that interpretation matched her actual words became almost secondary because the reaction itself took on a life of its own. That's one thing people underestimate about modern sports. In today's world, perception moves faster than facts. Before anyone watches the full press conference, short clips are already circulating. Headlines are being shared. Opinions are forming. Algorithms reward outrage far more than context. And once that train leaves the station, slowing it down becomes nearly impossible. Social media lit up almost immediately. Comment sections exploded. Calls for major organizational changes started appearing everywhere. Some fans threatened to stop, but the impact becomes real the moment fans begin changing their behavior. And that's why executives pay so much attention to public perception. If even a portion of your customer base feels disconnected from your brand, that affects everything, from merchandise sales to television ratings, sponsorship. Across the WNBA, Caitlin Clark. Every time she steps on the floor, audiences spike. Networks know it. Advertisers know it. League executives know it. Games featuring Clark have repeatedly produced some of the highest ratings in league history. Whether it's national broadcasts or cable television, the numbers keep telling the same story. Millions of viewers are tuning in specifically because they want to watch her play. That's why her impact goes way beyond points and assists. Recent nationally televised fever games have delivered audiences that many people thought were impossible for regular season WNBA basketball just a few years ago. Millions of viewers, historic cable performances, major network success. Every time Indiana appears in a prime television window, expectations immediately rise because Caitlin Clark has become appointment viewing. And when one player has that kind of influence over an entire league's visibility, every controversy surrounding that player, or the team around her, gets magnified tenfold. But here's where this story takes another unexpected turn, because once you see what happened after all this noise, you'll understand why the conversation became even more intense. Check this out. vidIQ. That clip says a lot, doesn't it? And once you connect it with everything we've covered so far, you start to understand why this story isn't just about one press conference or one viral headline. It's about timing, perception, and the massive business machine that's now built around the Indiana Fever. Because while everyone was debating comments online, another reality quietly hit the franchise where it hurts the most: national exposure. Here's the part that executives, broadcasters, and sponsors pay attention to. Caitlin Clark has been ruled out after re-aggravating her back injury. That's strictly a basketball issue. Injuries happen. Every athlete deals with them at some point. But when the biggest attraction in the league misses a nationally televised game, the ripple effect is enormous. This isn't speculation anymore. The television numbers have shown the same pattern over and over again. Games featuring Clark consistently produce audiences that dwarf the league average. Remove her from the lineup, and the audience doesn't just dip, it can fall dramatically. Think about what that actually means beyond a ratings chart. If around 1 million fewer people tune in, that's 1 million fewer fans watching commercials, 1 million fewer opportunities for sponsors to reach consumers, 1 million fewer potential jersey buyers, 1 million fewer casual viewers who might have become lifelong WNBA fans after watching one incredible performance. That's the hidden economy behind superstar athletes. Their value isn't measured only in points or assists. It's measured in eyeballs, attention, and momentum. Now combine that with the social media storm surrounding the Fever. On one side, your biggest television draw isn't available because of injury. On the other, your online community is locked in heated arguments over comments made during a press conference. Neither issue directly caused the other, but together they create the kind of week every professional franchise hopes to avoid. Instead of controlling the narrative with basketball success, you're constantly responding to controversy. And that's why this conversation behavior deserves to be called out. Period. There isn't a championship worth defending that kind of conduct. Stephanie White's message against abusive behavior reflected a principle that most reasonable people would agree with regardless of politics, because thousands of people reacted based on what they believe they heard, not necessarily what was literally said. That's the challenge of today's media environment. Everything moves at lightning speed. A 20-second clip spreads faster than a 20-minute explanation. Headlines travel farther than full interviews. Context usually arrives long after opinions have already hardened. Once millions of people begin filtering a statement through their own experiences and beliefs, changing those first impressions becomes incredibly difficult. It's almost like a buzzer-beater replay. The first angle convinces everyone they've seen the whole story. Then the slow-motion replay reveals details nobody noticed. But by then, social media has already declared a winner and a loser. That's exactly what now those new audiences are mixing with longtime supporters who helped build the league over decades. That's exciting. But it's also incredibly complicated. Whenever a league grows this quickly, different expectations collide. Different perspectives collide. Different interpretations collide. Every public statement suddenly carries extra weight because millions of new eyes are paying attention. That's why this isn't just a basketball issue anymore. It's a communications challenge. It's a branding challenge. It's a leadership challenge. And those challenges don't disappear simply because someone's intentions were good. The real question becomes this: who should be leading these conversations? Should a head coach, whose primary responsibility is preparing her team to win games, also become the public face of difficult conversations involving fan behavior? Or should that responsibility fall to league executives, communications specialists, and commissioners whose entire job is managing sensitive institutional messaging? Think about it. Coaches already juggle injuries, scouting reports, player development, media obligations, locker room chemistry, and game planning. Every extra controversy becomes another distraction from winning basketball games. Meanwhile, league offices are specifically built to handle public relations, crisis communication, and messaging strategy on behalf of the sport as a whole. That distinction may seem small, but in today's hyper-connected sports world, it could make all the difference. And what happened next only made that debate even louder, because once more voices from around the basketball world entered the conversation, the pressure on the Fever reached a whole new level. You won't want to miss this next part. That was a powerful moment, wasn't it? But once the cameras stopped rolling, the bigger question still hadn't been answered. This isn't just about who was right or wrong anymore. It's about leadership, messaging, and whether the Indiana Fever accidentally allowed one of the greatest moments in franchise history to get buried beneath a controversy that never should have overshadowed the basketball in the first place. Here's where this conversation gets really interesting. There's a legitimate argument that Stephanie White showed courage by speaking out. Coaches aren't robots. They're leaders, and leadership sometimes means addressing issues bigger than the scoreboard. Standing against harassment, racism, or threats aimed at players and their families takes conviction, and plenty of people respected her for refusing to stay silent. But here's the flip side, and this is where front offices earn their paychecks. Being morally right doesn't automatically mean the timing or the messenger is strategically perfect. Professional sports organizations operate like billion-dollar brands. Every public statement has consequences beyond the locker room. That's why communications departments exist. That's why commissioners hold press conferences. Their entire job is navigating emotionally charged issues while allowing coaches to stay focused on winning games. So here's the real debate. Should a head coach become the face of a league-wide conversation during the middle of a season? Or should those difficult institutional messages come from executives whose role is specifically designed for crisis communication? Those aren't mutually exclusive ideas. Stephanie White can be applauded for her principles while the organization still evaluates whether the messaging strategy served the team's broader objectives. Sometimes leadership requires speaking up. Other times leadership means choosing the right platform, the right timing, and the right spokesperson. Those two realities can absolutely exist together. Because the unfortunate truth is this. Once the discussion shifted toward the press conference, basketball stopped being the headline. And that's what makes this week so frustrating for Indiana Fever fans. Think about what should have dominated every sports show. Aliyah Boston continued proving she's one of the league's elite stars. Kelsey Mitchell finally earned the All-Star starting recognition many fans felt she deserved for years. Caitlin Clark added yet another All-Star start, reinforcing her status as one of the biggest names in basketball. 3 starters from one franchise. That's historic. That's culture-changing. That's exactly the kind of milestone organizations spend years trying to build toward. Instead, the celebration got drowned out by endless debates across social media. Instead of talking about championship potential, people argued over headlines. Instead of breaking down basketball, everyone was breaking down press conferences. That's a communications lesson every professional franchise should study. Not because anyone needs to be punished. Not because coaches should suddenly stop expressing themselves. But because organizations need clear strategies for protecting their biggest moments. When you finally achieve something historic, you don't want your own milestone competing with a completely different news cycle. Now let's separate another issue that keeps getting blended together online. This might actually be the biggest misunderstanding in this entire debate. There are passionate Caitlin Clark supporters who simply want consistent officiating. They are buying tickets. They are traveling to games. They are filling arenas. They are purchasing jerseys. They are introducing friends and family to the WNBA for the very first time. Their frustration isn't rooted in hate. It's rooted in basketball. They watch Clark absorb hard fouls, physical defense, and controversial no-calls, then ask what they believe is a fair question. Is the league doing enough to protect its biggest star? Whether you agree with that concern or not, it's a basketball conversation. That's completely different from someone hiding behind a keyboard sending threats or hateful messages toward another player or her family. Those aren't the same people. Those aren't the same motivations. Those aren't even the same conversations. Yet somewhere along the way, those distinctions became blurred. And once fans believe their legitimate basketball concerns are being lumped together with the actions of extremists, frustration naturally grows. Nobody wants to feel mischaracterized. Nobody wants their genuine opinions dismissed because of behavior they never participated in. That's where communication becomes absolutely critical. The league has to show it can walk and chew gum at the same time. It can condemn harassment. It can protect players. It can also acknowledge that fans have legitimate basketball questions about officiating, physical play, and consistency. Those ideas don't cancel each other out. In fact, handling both effectively is probably the smartest long-term strategy. Because once fans stop feeling heard, something much bigger than social media engagement starts disappearing. Attention, interest, loyalty, and eventually, viewership. That's where the numbers become impossible to ignore. Every major television network understands it. Sponsors understand it. Advertisers understand it. The Fever with Caitlin Clark on the court consistently attract audiences that redefine what's possible for WNBA broadcasts. Without her, those audiences shrink dramatically. That's not emotion. That's not speculation. That's measurable reality backed by multiple seasons of television data. When one player can influence hundreds of thousands, or even millions, of additional viewers, every decision surrounding that franchise suddenly carries enormous weight. That's why this conversation isn't really about one press conference anymore. It's about protecting the momentum of a league that's experiencing unprecedented growth while making sure every stakeholder, players, coaches, longtime fans, and brand new audiences, still feels connected to the product. And believe me, the final piece of the story ties everything together in a way most people never saw coming. The conclusion completely changes how this entire controversy should be viewed. Check this out. That clip right there brings everything full circle. After all the headlines, all the hot takes, and all the online beef, we're finally back to the one thing that matters most, basketball. And maybe that's exactly where the story was always supposed to end. Here's the biggest takeaway. Nobody is saying online harassment should have been ignored. No serious basketball fan is defending threats, racist attacks, or abusive behavior toward players or their families. That kind of behavior has absolutely no place in sports. The real discussion has never been about whether those actions deserve condemnation. They absolutely did. The bigger question is how organizations deliver those messages when the stakes have never been higher. Today's WNBA isn't operating in the same world it was just a few years ago. Every statement gets clipped. Every interview goes viral. Every headline becomes another battlefield on social media. When a league is experiencing record-breaking growth and millions of brand new fans are tuning in, communication isn't just public relations anymore, it's part of the business strategy. That's why timing matters. That's why wording matters. And perhaps most importantly, that's why choosing the right messenger matters. A league office releasing a carefully crafted statement creates one kind of reaction. A head coach addressing the issue during an active news cycle creates another. Both can stand for the exact same principles while producing completely different public responses. That's not about right versus wrong. That's about understanding how modern sports media actually works. There's another perspective that's worth thinking about. Veteran players have pointed out that the WNBA has always faced unique cultural challenges as it expanded into the mainstream. Long before Caitlin Clark arrived, many people formed opinions about the league without ever watching a full game. Those perceptions didn't suddenly appear this season. They've existed for years. Now, because the league is attracting millions of first-time viewers, those different worlds are colliding. Longtime supporters, new basketball fans, casual viewers, hardcore analysts. Everyone is entering the same conversation, but not everyone arrives with the same expectations or experiences. That creates challenges. But now, believe it or not, the Indiana Fever have the perfect opportunity to change the narrative. Forget the comment sections. Forget the endless debates. Forget the viral clips. The schedule keeps moving. The Fever hit the road with huge matchups waiting. Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Phoenix. Every game represents another chance to remind everyone Indiana is right in the middle of the Eastern Conference race, and despite everything that's happened, this team is still in an outstanding position. Then comes the date every basketball fan has circled. July 9th. Phoenix fades away. That's what sports do better than anything else. They reset the conversation. Nobody remembers Twitter arguments when a superstar starts knocking down logo threes. Nobody talks about press conferences after a clutch fourth quarter. Nobody cares about online drama when the game itself steals the show. Basketball has a funny way of settling debates. And if Caitlin Clark returns healthy, focused, and motivated after everything that's unfolded over the past week. Don't be shocked if she delivers another signature performance that reminds the entire sports world why she changed this league in the first place. Now zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. The Indiana Fever have 3 court. That's not a franchising crisis. That's a franchise sitting on enormous potential. Yes, this week brought controversy. Yes, there were communication challenges. Yes, there are lessons the organization can learn moving forward. But none of those stories should erase what this team has actually accomplished. The real headline was never the drama. The real headline was history. 3 All-Star starters. A franchise first. Proof that one of the WNBA's fastest rising orgs. And once the basketball starts doing the talking again, that's the story fans will remember. So now it's your turn. Because if Caitlin Clark returns in Phoenix, we'll have a complete breakdown, the biggest reactions, and every game-changing moment waiting for you into WNBA vibe. And remember, the headlines may grab attention, but greatness is decided between the lines. We'll see you in the next one.